welcome to my final instalment of the classic Tony Banks keyboards. Now we're going to cover the ARP Pro Soloist today. The ARP is a preset synthesizer. That means that you've got, in the ARP there were tabs or buttons effectively that you could select different sounds, as opposed to a synthesizer where you have a lot of knobs and sliders to adjust to get a sound. One of the great things about the ARP was that the presets themselves were really great, the sounds that they had, and not only were they great sounds, but you could modify them using a number of sliders for what's called Aftertouch, and I've programmed that into my Yamaha S30 keyboard, and that's what gives it its great expression. And I'll give you an example of that. If I play a little bit from Entangled by Genesis, the solo at the end, which is absolutely beautiful. If I played it straight with no aftertouch, it would sound like this. Etc. With the aftertouch, when you press a note, you get expression depending on how hard you press the note, and I've programmed a vibrato effect for this aftertouch. There are different effects you can program, as you could on the ARP. So let's hear that with the aftertouch effect. It makes a big difference, and you can do that on all of the different sounds. There's different effects, wah-wah, note bending. I'll give you an example of the note bending effect. I do that using a bender, usually a bender wheel, which I've got here. So you've got that effect, and you could do that on the ARP by again pressing the note a bit harder. That was a bit of riding the scree from Landmarks on Broadway. And that effect is used on a sound called Telstar, which is one of the presets. Now the other sound that's very familiar is the electric guitar sound on the ARP, which Tony used quite a lot, and it sounds like this. It's a bit of the Cage solo. Again, you've got that. The harder you hit the note, the louder it is, and the more you press the note firmly, the more vibrato you get. So you get this lovely expression effect. Now, if we go to Cinema Show, the solo at the end of Cinema Show really showcases a lot of the sounds on the ARP, and Tony was literally flicking the buttons every few bars of music. So it's if you play along with that, you get something like this. That's trumpet. Then we go to muted trumpet. And then you've got a violin, sort of sound that's called violin. And then after that he goes to oboe. Now that sound of oboe is used in a lot of places. It's used in ripples. For the solo in the middle, it's used in, I think, squonk. And it's used in a number of other places. The next sound which is used is a sound called Telstar, which we mentioned earlier, and that one has a lot of portamento on it. Portamento is where you can have a note slide from one note into another, like that. And it's used here. Now up to there it's single notes, but Tony was very clever at having this overhand technique where he plays two notes very close together with different hands to give the appearance of playing at double the speed. Like that. Of course on the albums he could double track, but live he couldn't. What I've done to enable me to play live with two notes is I cheat and I make this polyphonic instead of monophonic. So I can actually play it live as it was on the record. I do that in a number of places. I do it there, and I do it in the ending of Cinema's show. You know. So you can play that with both notes at the same time, and then it sounds more like the record. It's personal taste, because live Tony wouldn't have been able to do that. If you listen to the live recordings, he's playing a single note. There's a bit of a joke about that actually. When Rick Wakeman bought his first Moog, he bought it off of the chap who played the Artful Dodger in Oliver in the stage production, who'd bought a Moog and was very disappointed when he found it could only play one note at a time, and he thought it was broken. And he said to Rick Wakeman, "Do you want to buy it? You know, it's no use to me. It only plays one note at a time." And Rick Wakeman said, "Well, it's supposed to do that." So, so of course, in the hands of Rick Wakeman, it was great. Anyway, those are the sort of main sounds. Just another couple of sounds that's probably worth mentioning. The sound that's used in Slipper Man has got some nice effects on it. So Tony also used a few effects pedals with the ARP. Again, you hear the overhand technique effect, so that you get lots of notes at the same time, to give the effect of it being polyphonic when it is in fact monophonic. The Slipperman sound again has a bit of portamento on it, and it also has a digital delay. If you listen carefully, you get a second note that occurs just after the first note, like an echo, and that's called a digital delay. So that's in there as well. Tony used chorus and various other effects sometimes as well. That sound there, that's from the Lamia. It's got a sort of very strange wavery sound, which is a very, very slow vibrato effect. So that's interesting. So that was the great thing. So you got the basic preset sounds, and you could alter them a little bit to give a lot of expression, and that's really what made that keyboard such a great expressive keyboard throughout the 70s when Tony Banks was using it as his really main lead instrument. So that wraps it up. That's the ARP Pro Soloist. I use this keyboard basically because I can get the sounds and get these thick sounds that are used in the original keyboard. I have considered playing an original one. I do have a virtual instrument version of it, but again, just the practicalities of playing it live means that it's better to stick with a newer instrument, but with those sounds programmed into it. So I hope you enjoyed this series, and I look forward to doing some other videos during the lockdown period.